Hunger Games takes place in a dystopian future, but from what I saw, about 300 years in the future, after some kind of possibly a nuclear fallout. In the civilization, or it's called Panem.
Panem is divided into 13 districts, or plus the capital district. Each district has a specific industry that they specialize in, but our story starts off in District 12, which is the coal mining district. It follows the story of Katniss Everdeen.
We find out pretty early on that she's basically the caretaker of her family being her younger sister Prim and then her mother. Her father died in a coal mining accident, which is pretty common when it comes to coal mines. So we also do need to note this as well. District 12 is the poorest district of all the districts, and a part of town that Katniss lives in is the poorest in District 12. So they are part of the poorest of the poor. Now, later on, we meet a character by the name of Peeta. He's a male character that comes into the story a little bit later on. He is from the rich side of town, but rich is relative. But not that important to the story, but it is kind of important to note that they are extremely poor and that she is really the poorest of the poor.
Now, before we dive into the main body of the story of the Hunger Games, we need to talk about some of the background of Panem and the districts. So back it was like 75 years ago, there was an uprising from the districts trying to overthrow the government of Panem, and because of that, the government decided to start the Hunger Games, which they take one male and one female from each district, put them in an arena to fight to the death.
Specifically, one male and one female from the ages of 12 to 18. So
Yes,
these aren't just men and women,
they're
these are
kids.
children. So that is actually a big part of the story. So at the beginning of the story, you find out that Prim, Katniss' sister, has just turned 12. Now, when you get put into the pool, it's kind of like a lottery pool. You have a big ball, you have your names in there. So when you turn 12, you have your name put in once. So the odds are not that high that you'll get chosen. Each year you get one name put in. So by the time you turn 18, you have more names than 12. I don't want to do the math right now. My head hurts. Anyways, now you can also do things such as what Gale does. Gale is a love interest briefly for Katniss. They kind of have a thing going. He's another one of the guys in District 12. He is the caretaker of his family. His father also died in the mining accident, so he takes care of his siblings. And to get food, you can trade. Basically, you can get your name put in the pool in exchange for food. So he's done that enough times that this current year he's 18 years old, but this current year his name is in there 42 times, and that's why in the movie, and I have not personally read the books, but in the movies you have the uh, line where he says his name is in there 42 times. That's why.
So back to the main story, Prim and Katniss go to the reaping ceremony, where they draw the two names, the male and the female, and Prim's name is drawn, and Katniss
What
not
are the odds?
yeah like one out of however many names are in there. So Katniss, obviously not wanting her sister to go to the Hunger Games and she'd probably die, volunteers to take Prim's place.
Now, when it comes to surviving the Hunger Games, that is that's basically the worst thing you can do, but she does it anyways. So she goes and is reaped into one of 24 who goes into the Hunger Games. And the second of the men who is chosen, Peeta, the character I was talking about previously, is also picked. So he goes, and they both go to the head onto the Capitol, where they will receive training and a little bit of mentorship from past winners. Um, to hopefully help their odds in the game. Now, the odds are technically even across the board for all kinds of anyone who gets reaped in this. you have 1 out of 24 odds of winning this. But in the history of Hunger Games, which this is the 74th annual Hunger Games, there have been a small handful of people to win from District 12. One of which is Haymitch, who you meet in a little bit, but he is the only living one to have won the Hunger Games.
When the contestants go and meet their mentors are always someone from the district that they're from. So a previous winner of the Hunger Games. Because there are so few winners, I mean, Haymitch is the only surviving winner from District 12. So because of that, there's not really much options for mentorship. Kids from districts 1, 2, and 3 are trained essentially from birth to win the Hunger Games. So districts 1, 2, and 3 almost always win because the young people that end up getting sent to the Hunger Games have, like I said, have been trained from birth, and they pretty much all of them volunteer to go to the Hunger Games to fight for their district.
They consider it an honor. It's more. It's not as when we come into the scene in District 12 when they're doing the reaping, it is an extremely somber time. Everyone is scared. You can just see that. You can feel the tension. You feel scared for the characters, and you feel scared if like you put yourself in that position, like, oh, my name can be drawn, and then the relief when it's not you. But in Districts 1, 2, and 3, it is more of it's a privilege, and this is what I am supposed to be doing. Like, this is what I go my whole life to do. So while every year someone from Districts 1, 2, and 3 doesn't win, they technically have higher odds because they've been trained with these this in mind for their entire life. Now, it is important to note that the each arena, which we'll talk a little bit more about later, but each arena is different year to year. So it's not like it's the same arena over and over again. So it's not necessary, and the weapons are different too. Not every single weapon is going to be in every single arena. But they're trained in the basics of hand-to-hand combat. A lot of them are the more brute strength ones. They do tend to have a lot more skills overall, and they're really good, when it comes to fighting. So those are key things when it goes to going into Hunger Games. So that's why they tend to win. So when we first meet Haymitch, that's basically what he tells them. He says, just accept the fact that you're going to die. Because, well, one, he's drunk, but he's also not wrong.
Even though the saying is, may the odds be ever in your favor, most of the time they're not.
That's another thing, and that's one thing that we do. We need to stay on topic of the story of this, but the game masters, people running the game, don't help when it comes to stacking the odds in your favor. A lot of times they're against you. As far as the story goes, Katniss and Peeta get picked, and they go to the capital where, on the way there, they meet Haymitch, which, starting off, he's really not a whole lot of help. And to be honest, so Haymitch is a drunk, but he agrees to sober up because he sees some potential in Katniss, specifically Katniss, but also in Peeta. So he agrees to help and train them. And so a large chunk of the movie after this point is him training them and kind of teaching them little tidbits here and there as to what they need to do to increase their odds in the game, because it's not just about what you do and who you are. It's also about how this is a show. This is a performance. You got to make people like you.
And that's a lot of what this section of the movie is here, is Katniss and Peeta trying to sway favor essentially with the rich people in the capital district, with the donors. But they're also training too. And one thing I do want to mention here with their training, all of the 24 people who are in the Hunger Games are trained in the same facility. So they get to see all of the other people in the Hunger Games where they're at in their skill level, which doesn't work out well for Katniss because everyone sees how good she is with the bow, and she becomes a target.
So before the games start, they give each one of the tributes a ranking. One or not 1 through 12. It's like 5 through 12 or something like that, I believe. Something a little odd. Anyways, Katniss receives an 11. In the movie, they don't show every single tribute and what their score is. But to put this in perspective, the main the bad guy in this, like the guy you're really rooting against, Kato, he gets a 10, and he is from District 2, and so he is a career. That's what they call the ones who have been trained from birth. So he's a career, and he gets a 10. Katniss gets an 11. So number one on the careers list is to hunt down Katniss and get rid of her, because Kato doesn't like having people who are better than him. So he wants her gone. So right before they go into the dome, into the arena for the games, they have interviews to kind of let the audience get to know the characters. In these interviews, Peeta takes a little bit of information. He just so happens to say that he is in love with Katniss. Well, this does not make Katniss too happy, but it was under the advice of Haymitch, because he thinks it's the best idea for them to be seen as the movie calls them, the star-crossed lovers. This helps them stand out. Another thing that helps them stand out is when the tributes first get to the Capitol, they have this little parade where people also get to see them. And we in that scene there we meet the designer, Cinna. And he is like one of the only good people in all of Capital. The Capital is just full of people who care about themselves and are corrupt. They're rich, powerful. They don't really care. He's a good guy, genuinely. And we find out later that he's actually a part of a new rising rebellion that the other movies talk more about. But anyway, so he helps her, and he also in the first parade there, he helps them stand out. He lights them on fire. And then he has her dress in the talk show later on when they're getting to know her. Has Katniss's dress also have the fire look to her, so she's known as the girl on fire. So these are also all big things that help Katniss stand out and help her be more likable to the people who are watching, which helps her odds. It's not just the fact that she's, well known because of the fact that she's one of the few people who volunteers as tribute from the outer districts, from the higher number districts like 12. It's not just because she's made a impact with, all these other things. Everything adds up, and so she starts getting some traction. She's gaining that traction, and she's getting support from outside. People are rooting for her, and people are rooting for her and Peeta.
So, right before they go into the arena, Haymitch advises Katniss not to go for the cornucopia, even though there's a bow. Katniss is deadly with a bow, but Haymitch advises her not to go to the cornucopia. And we see why in a few minutes after this. As soon as they get to the arena, timer starts. After it counts down to 0, all of the tributes leave their podium and run for the cornucopia, or most run for the cornucopia. A lot end up dying right there, right off the bat. So Katniss manages to snag a backpack that's got some supplies, but she's not able to grab the bow. She runs off into the woods before obviously getting killed there in the main clearing area by the cornucopia. And Peeta had also ran off into the woods right off the bat.
Yes, this is the best strategy, being as the cornucopia is a bloodbath. And while this movie does like to keep its PG-13 rating, it does still show a lot of gruesome things in the realm of killing kids. And it's very sad. Like, you watch it and it's just sad. I mean, you may not find it sad, you might also be heartless, but it's a very sad, somber moment, and it kind of just shows the reality of this. But we get into the games, and don't specifically remember if it was 12, but I know there's a bunch of people who die. It's in the double digits, who die in this first outing, first parts of the game. And from here on out, it's a lot to do with survival. Yes, you're going to be having people who are hunting you, or you might be hunting. So there's an alliance forms among the careers that start hunting Katniss down. So things like this are going to happen. Survival and finding food and water is not the only priority. You also have to know how to survive and escape other people who might be hunting you and trying to kill you.
Mm-hmm.
But the arena is mostly woods. So Katniss starts trekking through the woods, and eventually she finds her way to the outside of the arena. They didn't want her to get too far to the edge of the map. So they start a fire to drive her back to the middle of the map. They do a little bit more than start a fire, though. They kind of, like we were saying earlier, they really do try to kill her. Fireballs are running right at her, so they aren't holding anything back, which is why the odds aren't in your favor if the game makers don't like you. They don't really seem to like Katniss.
Yeah, the game makers seem to have favoritism towards the careers.
So once she comes back into the main part of the arena, she is found by a group of careers who have gotten together. It's like 3 or 4 or 5 of them who've gotten together, and Peeta is with them as well.
So Peeta joined up with them to track down Katniss, more so to protect Katniss from them, which we see in a minute here. So they had cornered Katniss. They had treed Katniss. She was hiding up in a tree, and they were shooting arrows at her, trying to kill her. And Peeta makes the suggestion that they should camp there for the night and wait her out. Wait for her to come down, because she's got to come down eventually. So they settle down to camp for the night. While they're asleep, Katniss notices that there is a trackerjacker nest in this tree. That's right. I forgot about that. Yeah, so Rue points it out, and Katniss notices it then. And then, so trackerjackers are genetically modified wasp, and their sting is venomous and can kill. So Katniss decides to cut down the branch. She has a knife with a sawback. She starts cutting down the limb that the nest is on. She ends up getting stung a few times. But, of course, when the nest falls and busts open in the middle of the camp for the careers, most of them get stung to the point where they died.
Kato is a part of this group, so not all they show at this point is one girl does die by getting overwhelmed with the stings. But this happens to be the girl that has the bow. So Katniss now has a bow, but she's also starting to hallucinate. Now, Peeta runs up, and he's telling Katniss to get out of here. What's she doing? She needs to run. She's a little disoriented. Can't really tell what's going on here. She kind of just blacks out. She wakes up, and she's underneath, like tucked in nice and neat to a stump. Her bow and arrows are sitting right there next to her, and she has a bunch of leaves over her arms where all the different stings are, like one on her neck and stuff like that. Come to find out, this character who we mentioned a minute ago, Rue, is one that's helping take care of her. She's got to be 12 years old. She can't be much more than that. She's not a fighter. She's basically what would be if Prim went into the Hunger Games. So she's got very little going for her. Katniss sees her sister in this little girl and's like, I gotta take care of her. Obviously, I can't kill her. We gotta, this is, I'm gonna make an alliance with her. So they make an alliance, and they plan on kind of getting back at the careers. So the careers in the middle part where the cornucopia is, English, have made a mound of all the supplies, and their plan is to basically destroy that.
So, right here in the middle, where the cornucopia was, they'd get all the supplies together. That's where they'd also made their camp. They'd also, in this area here, there were also a bunch of mines that the careers had moved around their supplies. And so Katniss and Rue make this plan to destroy all the supplies. So Rue starts a fire up in the woods, and Katniss sneaks down to the edge of the clearing here. So most of the careers notice the smoke from the fire, and 3 of them leave, leaving 1 of them guard. While Katniss is watching, kind of evaluating the situation here, another girl runs up and steals something from the pile. Katniss notices that she is very careful the way she moves, avoiding the mines, letting Katniss know that there are the mines there. The one guard ends up chasing off this girl who stole some kind of supply, and so Katniss is free to shoot a bag of apples that's laying on top of the supplies to detonate the mines, blowing up all the supplies.
So she blows up the mines, blows up the supplies. Kato gets back, kills the guy that they left to stand watch. And that leaves a group of careers down to 3. Then Katniss goes back to find Prim. Sorry, Rue.
Rue is caught in a net, and she's yelling for Katniss's help. Katniss runs through the woods, finds Rue, cuts her loose from the net. When one of the careers steps out from behind a tree with a spear, throws it at the two. Katniss is able to shoot an arrow, hit him, but she turns to see that the spear had hit Rue.
So, in a moment that would cause even the toughest of men to cry, we watch as Katniss takes some time to not bury Rue, but put some flowers down for her and basically do her ups to show some respect at the loss of this child who should have no business being in a place like this. But I think we'll get into more of the awfulness of the Capitol at a later time.
I do also want to mention here, so the Hunger Games are televised to the entire country. So Rue was from District 11, and we do see, after she dies here, we do see a riot start in District 11, because obviously this little girl just got killed in front of in front of everyone. So we see a riot start in District 12. Or sorry, in District 11, I mean.
We go a little bit longer, and eventually we hear an announcement. They're changing the rules.
So this happens as a result of Hamage. After the riot in District 11, President Snow is very unhappy with Katniss because he's blaming her for everything, essentially. Hamage goes to the game maker and basically is trying to persuade him for this. It'd be good TV to see this. These star-crossed lovers have this like triumphant moment. So as a result of that, the game maker makes a rule or changes the rules to allow for there to be 2 winners, provided that they are from the same district.
So this causes Katniss to go on a search to find Peeta. Eventually, she does find him, tracks him down, finds him, using those hunting skills that we saw in the beginning of the movie. And she finds him, but he has been badly wounded. His leg is gashed open, and he basically can't walk. So she gets him to a safe place in a cave and basically takes care of him from that point on because their goal is to both survive, being that if they can both survive, so why wouldn't they? But anyways, Haymitch pulls a couple more strings, and the game makers leave a little present for each one of the remaining people. So Katniss goes out to get this. Now this is in the cornucopia, so this is not a very safe place to be. This is a very open place to be. And Katniss goes there. She is met by another, I believe it is the girl from District 2.
This girl ambushes Katniss and is about to kill her when the guy from District 11 steps in and saves Katniss. Because the girl from District 2 had mentioned that they killed Rue. And because Rue was also from District 11, so the guy from District 11 had overheard that and killed the girl, and went and killed the girl from District 2 because, obviously they were responsible for the death of this little girl.
Anyways, so he takes care of that and he runs off. So Katniss is free to grab what she needs and go back to Peeta and help him out with that.
It's medicine to heal Peeta's leg. So takes that the next day. His leg is healed enough to where he can walk.
At this point in time, the games are about to come to an end. When they start walking, they go out and kind of try to find food. In the process, Peeta finds some berries. Well, these berries just so happen to be poisonous. So Katniss is like, "You don't eat those. You can't eat those." She's like, "Okay, well, we won't eat them, but maybe we can figure out a way to trick Cato into eating them. Well, they do find out that the girl from, I don't remember what district she's in, but they find out one of the last remaining girls, last remaining people there, did end up eating the berries and has died. So at this point in time, the only 4 people who are left in the arena are Katniss, Peeta, Thresh, and Cato. So it starts to get a little bit dark because I guess the game masters want to have a dark finale. They get it though. And they release this uh genetically engineered dog, essentially,
It's like a little, it's
into
like a
the
wolf
arena.
bear thing.
Yeah. So they hear the howling or they hear it coming and they hear some screaming off in the distance, and then they hear the boom, which signifies the death of a tribute, and they see Threshes in the sky. So all that's left at this point in time are the 2 of them and Cato. Well, now they're being chased by this pack of dogs. We're going to call them dogs. I don't know what they're actually called, but by this pack of dogs. And they make their way through the woods, and they finally get to the cornucopia, where they make their way on top of the little building that houses the supplies. And they just so happen to meet the one only other person there who is in the way of them winning.
So there's a struggle starts on top of the cornucopia between Cato and Katniss and Peeta, and it comes to a head with Cato holding Peeta in a headlock in a position to break his neck, with Katniss having her bow drawn aimed at Cato. But if she shot Cato, Cato's corpse would then pull Peeta down onto the ground for the dogs to kill. So she didn't want to shoot him there because
It is a very it is a very bad, sad scenario here because you see it in Cato. Cato at this point in time is very beat up.
mm-hmm.
He even says that he knows he is about to die. He makes a comment. He's like, "I'm about to die." He's like, "But I can still snap Peter's neck. I can still do it. I got this in me. I can get one more kill. But I know I'm about to die." You know, it's extremely sad, and you know, kind of brings some humanity to a character that up until this point you really just hate.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but it's pretty short lived.
Yeah, so Cato readjusts his grip just enough to where Katniss can shoot his hand, causing him to let go of Peeta and stumble backwards, of course, off the cornucopia. He ends up getting killed by the dogs, and then they all run off into the woods. Morning starts to come, and Katniss and Peeta wait for their victory, because obviously they're the last 2 people, and they're both from the same district, as per the rule that they had changed before.
Oof. Actually, rule change. Only one can win.
So Katniss then pulls out the berries that she had put in her pocket previously, the poisonous berries, and tells Peeta that they're not going to get their winner. Gives Peeta half the berries, and they are about to eat the berries. When
All right. Fine. We can have 2 winners. Announcing the 2 winners, Katniss and Peeta. All right, let's everyone go about their business. It's good. Yes. So, in an act of defiance, which is not liked at all by Snow, Katniss and Peeta are the 2 winners of 74th Hunger Games. And that's about it for the movie. There are some things to tie up loose ends at the end of it, but that's essentially the movie. And this is one of 4. One of 3 books, one of 4 movies. But anyways, so we will dive into the rest of them at a later date and the effects of what happens after Katniss and Peeta defy the Capitol with this act, which it is seen as a huge act of defiance. Um, But if you enjoyed this and in any way liked what you heard and are interested in more stuff to do with the Hunger Games or anything else related to most movies, check out our channel and come back on Monday where we will be releasing a podcast diving even deeper into Hunger Games.
Also, go check out our past podcast episodes. We talk a lot about Star Wars, and we're talking about Back to the Future too. Go check it out. We have something for everyone.
And if you have anything that you would like us to talk about other than Pokemon, because we've talked about it, we can't dive into Pokemon. We don't have too much to it.
But let us know.
Anyways, anything else? Let us know down below. Please let us know what you want to hear from us, and we will add it to the schedule. We will bump things up. We will take care of it for you. With that, we hope you have an amazing rest of your day or night, and we will see you next time on the Trailcast.